Have you ever disliked a song so much that for most of your life, you just couldn't stand to listen to it? Talking about one of those tracks you always skipped on an album, fast forward on your Walkman, or, grab them for the dial when it came on the radio. I'm sure you have. We've all had songs like that. Let me ask you this, though. Have you ever had a song that you hated that you later learned to love after hearing it in a different context? Well, today we're covering such a song. One that for decades I had completely written off. But then I was caught off guard and I heard it with new ears. And now I love it. Funny thing is, this track's guitarist, he went through the same journey. First, he just didn't get it either. Now he admits it's something really special. Find out what changed both our minds with the help of two special guest interviews coming up next on Professor of Rock. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. If you remember scratch and sniff stickers from back in the day, you're going to dig this channel of deep musical nostalgia. I sure remember. I remember the taco one for sure. Make sure to subscribe below right now. I know that you're going to find something to like on this channel. Click the bell so you always know when our stuff's coming out. We also have a Patreon. We have more content there. If you've ever seen this channel at least once or twice, you'll know that I love all kinds of music. One day you'll see me geeking out over the genius of the Smiths and The Cure. Another day I'll wax poetic about Van Halen or Guns N' Roses. I love Toto and the Clash, Janet Jackson and Prince, Sinatra, Elvis, on and on and on, which is why you find such an eclectic mix of genres and musicians on this channel. I love it all. Well, most of it. I've never understood why you have to be trapped in one style of music or, limit yourself to a decade or two. When I was a kid in the late 80s, I was crazy about hard rock and heavy metal, and I pretended not to still love Billy Joel and Phil Collins. But then in 7th grade, it was new wave or bust, even though I was secretly buying Bruce Hornsby and Whitney Houston albums. As I got older, I finally realized that I just didn't care what anyone else thought. You like what you like, and you don't need to pretend or apologize for your taste in music. If I want to listen to Pink Floyd Wish You Were Here and John Denver Take Me Home Country Roads back to back, I can and I will.
How I wish you were here. These country roads take me home.
That being said, everybody has songs and artists that they just don't care for, myself included. Even with wide open minds and ears, sometimes certain songs or artists just don't resonate with us. For example, when I was growing up, I couldn't stand the Carpenters. That's not what this video is about. I just didn't like the Carpenters. But then about, 8 or 9 years ago, I saw the light. I realized what a unique and soul-rapturing voice Karen Carpenter possessed. Now I absolutely love him.
Rainy days and Mondays always get me down.
Has that ever happened to you? Let's talk about it in the comments. Likewise, I had a similar experience with today's featured song, Open Arms by Journey. Now, anybody who watches this channel knows that I love Journey. I consider their 1981 record Escape to be one of the greatest studio albums of the 80s. However, that doesn't mean 100% of the tracks resonated with me. There's just something about Open Arms that, rubbed me the wrong way. For some reason, I could never get into it.
You're so sincere.
I'm not sure why exactly. After all, I love a great power ballad. And you'd think that a big ballad from Journey would be a no-brainer favorite. I love Faithfully. But Open Arms wasn't. In fact, I could never get through the song. Whenever I'd listen to Escape or, Journey's greatest hits, Open Arms, automatic skip. We're going away. It stayed that way for decades. That is, until something unexpected happened. I had an experience that cast this song in a completely different light, and I did a complete 180. Now I love Open Arms. Before I tell you what changed my mind, first I want to dig into the story of the song and give you some background with some interviews. Let's get into it. Released on July 17, 1981, Escape was Journey's 7th studio album. At this point in their storied 50-plus career, The lineup featured Neal Schon on lead guitar, Ross Valerie on bass, Steve Smith on drums, newcomer Jonathan Cain on keyboards, and of course the incomparable voice, Steve Perry, on vocals. Previously, Journey had reeled off 3 straight triple platinum albums, 1978's Infinity, 1979's Evolution, and 1980's Departure. All incredible records. But Escape would outsell them all combined. It racked up 10 million copies sold in the US alone. Escape was the first album to feature the addition of Jonathan Cain. He took the place of keyboardist Greg Raleigh. Jonathan Cain actually co-wrote every track on the album and helped to reinvigorate the band, giving them just a new musical outlook. Plus, his piano melodies gave Escape so much of its emotion. Neal Schon's guitar playing and Steve Perry's voice, there really isn't a weak track on Escape. There's no filler. One of the best albums of the 80s, like I said. It's no surprise that Escape became Journey's first and actually only #1 album in the US. Should have been way more #1 albums for him. Around the globe, the album did pretty well too. It came in at number 36 in New Zealand, number 32 in the UK, number 26 in Japan, and number 6 in Canada. By the end of 1981, Escape had sold over 1 million copies. And at one point, it was selling something like 460,000 copies a week. In fact, the album was such a phenomenon that they even developed a computer game based on the album for the Atari. You remember that one? It's called Journey Escape. Very cool. I'll show some screenshots of it. The album was powered by 5 big hit singles, 3 of which broke the top 10 on the Billboard Hot 100. Those tracks included Don't Stop Believin',
Don't stop believing.
Who's Crying Now,
Wonder who's crying now.
and Open Arms.
With open arms.
There's also Stone in Love
Can't help myself, I'm falling. Stone
and Still They Ride.
in the ride.
Wow, just such great songs. So let's get into Open Arms. The song actually originated with Jonathan Cain before he joined up with Journey, back while he was still a member of the Babies with John Waite. Jonathan actually presented the song to John Waite. However, the singer turned it down. I believe he called it sentimental rubbish. However, Steve Perry, he'd have a very different view of the song, and Cain was pleasantly surprised to discover that Steve Perry enjoyed singing ballads, and he was a master at it. In Cain's words, and I quote, he loved the space on the slow songs where his high tenor voice could truly soar. So while they were finishing up the song Mother, Father for the album, Steve asked Jonathan if he'd written any love songs. In that moment, Cain knew exactly what he had to play, his partially finished version of Open Arms. And Steve, he loved it. But then there was Neal Schon. Like me, Neal was not initially a fan of this song. He just didn't get it. And you know what? I'm going to leave the story hanging right there so Jonathan and Neal can tell you the rest. Now, as we go into these 2 interviews, I do want to thank our sponsor, Zenni Eyewear, the glasses I rock daily. Go get yourself a new pair of glasses, blue box, sunglasses, they have everything. Click on the info button right up here. You can actually do a virtual try-on before you buy. Some of the best prices out there. Here is the interview.
And so how I got to the Journey was, playing these gigs. We had a tour with them, the Departure Tour, in 1979, I think. And they liked our Union Jack's album. Mm-hmm. So they said, we love that album you made, and we want you on tour. So, little did I know that Greg was going to retire, and they were watching me, and they knew we were kind of at the end of our rope with Chris and our record situation. And John wanted to go back solo, and so they just kind of recruited me. And they found out that John, he told them flat out that he was going to, ditch the band before I even knew it. So, John was on the way out, and so I got the phone call the next summer, and I was to go up and make this album. Come, I think it was February we started in 1980. In Berkeley. So I found myself in a moving truck going up to San Francisco with my wife and my German Shepherd, the city I always wanted to be in. I was just adored San Francisco, and making this album with a band I hadn't played a note with.
Yeah.
We'd never played a song together, and I'm in the studio writing the Escape album. So it was pretty surreal.
One of the biggest blockbuster albums of the day. In fact,
and we have no film of it. And no pictures of it.
This is crazy.
And our manager was a video guy.
Yeah.
Hello. I mean, can you imagine if we had film on
You had
that?
a video game on you guys around
I know,
the time.
but nobody bothered to take any pictures or video.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here going, oh, it's all, it's in my mind.
Because it set the stage
Yeah.
for all those blockbusters that came out in the
Well, it
80s.
was funny. When I met Steve and Neal and everything,
Yeah.
and Ross and Steve, I was instantly welcomed, and given so much of a voice, We want to change our sound. And we'd love for you to help us. Like that, little old me, guy from Chicago. Sure, I got some ideas because I watched the band every night. I found myself, when I was opening up for the Babies, sticking around and going, hey, I want to see what Journey does tonight. And so I'd watch them every night and see crowd reactions.
Gonna make it happen again.
So when I got to actually write and create in the band, I had an advantage of being part of the audience. So I get to sit in the seats and watch that. And I said, I think we're missing this, and this, So they were very interested, and, lyrically, Steve was interested in how we were going to shift things. And I said, it's pretty simple, we're going to add a little this, a little that. And I saw it, and then Neal had all these ideas that weren't quite getting filtered over to Steve. So I just became this big glue part, And I took Steve and Neal and I put some glue and we just like that. And I said, I like this idea. Steve wanted to sing a ballad. I said, I have this song called Open Arms. What do you think? Help me finish it.
John Waite didn't want to do it. He's like, this is a little too...
Yeah, schmaltzy, yeah. But he knew. See, the thing that cut out in VH1 about the John Waite thing was I did say that great singers have great instinct as to what they can deliver.
Right.
And Steve Perry's voice and John Waite's voice are very
different.
Very different.
Yes.
They're both very soulful guys, but John's more of a phrase singer.
I ain't missing you at all.
Steve's more of a crooner. He's more of a legato. He can sing notes, for 8 seconds, 9 seconds. And John knew, and Steve knew, that was the right song. Now, I wouldn't show Midnight Rendezvous to Steve Perry. You know what I mean? I got Midnight Rendezvous. He's looking at me like, no, that's not for me.
Yeah.
So I quickly, I was fortunate to work with two really great creators and pretty good band leaders. I mean, John was a great band leader. He had a great instinct for what the band needed to be, where we needed to be, and so did Steve. Mm-hmm. So I went from one great leader to another great leader, one great band to another great band. Unfortunately, for the Babies, there was the debt. Poor management led to the demise. If they had been managed differently, the band might be still around.
Well, the thing that was so great about the chemistry that the three of you had with Neal and you and Steve is that you had the distinct voice, the incredible guitar sound, and then your piano that glued it all together.
Exactly.
And it just, like songs like not only Open Arms, but Who's Crying Now?
Still They Ride.
And then you come in with Open Arms. What were your thoughts on Open Arms? Were you like, I don't know about this, man? It's a phenomenal song, and it's another standard, but tell me about that.
It is exactly that. I didn't know what to think of it. I mean, we had Escape done, and that song, it came in, and we played it, and we did the arrangement that John had. And it was really like no guitar, and I'm like, well, why am I doing this? So it was a turning point, and frankly, I didn't hear the song. I didn't get it. And I didn't want to play it live, Yeah. Perry loves the story. He loves to tell this story because that was wrong. And so the joke goes like after that, like, okay, so that's our first #1 single, right? I believe so. The joke went after that. Whatever song Neal doesn't like, that'll be our hit single. So But I remember we were out on tour, and we were like, sold out everywhere, an Escape tour, and we never played the song live. And Steve goes, I want to play that song tonight. And John, they both wanted to play it because they both, wrote it, or John wrote it with him. And I was, really? Where are we going to put that thing? And so we stuck it in the set, and the place came unglued. And I went like, because I knew I'd have to hear the end. I would never hear the end of it,
You walked off the stage after, and you were like, "That was awesome." And isn't how Steve Perry?
Well, I was surprised.
I'm gonna kill you.
I thought it was really not going to go down well with our audience because it was so different than anything we'd ever done before, and they loved it. And so I was just like, "Wow, okay."
Yeah.
What was I going to say?
Yeah.
The place came unglued. I was like, "That's awesome." I was wrong. What do you want me to say?
You just can't beat Steve Perry's vocal. Open Arms was Journey's highest charting hit. It went all the way to number 2, where it held tight for 6 weeks. It was behind Jay Giles' band's Centerfold and Joan Jett's I Love Rock and Roll, 2 big hits. Man, what a great time for music. So if you can believe it, Journey never had a number 1 hit on the Hot 100. It seems impossible, right? Granted, Open Arms did go to number 1 on the US Cashbox chart. It also reached number 7 on the Adult Contemporary chart and did well in Canada, where it went to number 2 on both the top singles chart and the AC chart. Here in North America, this was a monster ballad. Open Arms is also one of Journey's most covered songs. Mariah Carey had a number 4 hit with it in the UK. Celine Dion, Andy Gibb, Clay Aiken, Kelly Clarkson, Boyz II Men, Britney Spears, Keith Urban, Aaron Lewis, Faith Hill, Melissa Etheridge, and Barry Manilow have all done their own versions. But let's be clear, none of them can come within 1,000 miles of Steve Perry and Journey's sublime original. It's perfect.
What your love means to me, open arms.
Open Arms has also appeared in a handful of movies and TV shows through the years. There's Heavy Metal, General Hospital, Cold Case, My Name is Earl, Daddy's Home 2, Modern Family, and The Goldbergs, just to name a few. And then there's my personal favorite media placement for Open Arms, Cobra Kai. This is the one that actually turned me all the way around and made me like the song. It's funny how just the right mix of nostalgia and the passing of time can trigger a change in perspective. I've always been a huge Karate Kid fan. For a lot of 80s kids like me, the Ralph Macchio Karate Kid trilogy was right up there with iconic franchises like Back to the Future, Indiana Jones, Rocky, and Star Wars. At least the first 2 Karate Kids. What a great time to grow up. I know I talk about it a lot, but I remember watching The Karate Kid in the theater and begging my parents to sign me up for karate lessons. I must have practiced that crane kick on the trampoline about 100 times a day. My friends and I watched the movie on VHS daily for months. We even had our own karate competitions. So when Cobra Kai resurrected the storylines of Daniel LaRusso and Johnny Lawrence, I was so excited for it. Except now, so many years later, the tables have turned. As a kid, I loved Daniel, and I hated Johnny. But thanks to some brilliant writing, fleshing out the backstory of Mr. Lawrence, I found myself rooting for this back-in-the-day bully. And I saw this metal-loving, technologically challenged, down-on-his-luck antagonist as a flawed and likable hero. And though I didn't know it right away, this new perspective about Johnny paved the way for my change of heart when it came to Open Arms. Here's why. While I was watching season 3, the finale of season 3, with my 2 sons, I was blindsided by this song in the best way possible. Open Arms was featured in a key scene that had these 2 karate rivals come to their senses with the help of ex-girlfriend Allie Mills. In a throwback moment, Allie, Johnny, and Daniel's wife, they all have dinner together at the same country club from Karate Kid, the original. Allie becomes this incredible peacemaking force for Daniel and Johnny. It's a great scene because she helps them see each other in a new way. It's a really nice payoff after 3 seasons of escalating conflict, and it pays off even more in the seasons after that. Cobra Kai is great. You gotta watch it. You'll love it. Trust me on this. You really will love it. And if you don't want a giveaway, a spoiler, then you might want to skip this part. But in the season 3 finale, the evening comes to a close after Allie helps Johnny and Daniel kind of make peace. And Johnny and Allie walk outside. And I got to tell you, I was willing the writers of the show to let them get back together. I was wanting it to happen. I knew it couldn't work, but I was feeling this wave of 80s nostalgia, and I still hoped that it could. And that put my heart in just the right place for what would happen next. Just as these two characters were sharing this heartfelt moment, the sound of some familiar notes began to play. The piano of Open Arms.
We had our own little time machine.
Sometimes it's good to visit the past.
And as I watched and listened, this song, it hit me like never before. It's like I was hearing it for the first time, really hearing it. As the rest of the scene plays out with Open Arms playing in the background, something changed for me. Or maybe something changed in me. I don't know.
Lying beside, hearing.
But from then on, Open Arms was no longer my least favorite Journey track. It was a song tied to a moment of new nostalgia. It was a song that I now loved. Better late than never. I finally got it. And I experienced this scene with my 2 kids. It was just really a cool moment. My wife was watching as well. It just created a new memory. And that's kind of what Journey's music really does. And I've said this before, I gotta say it again. With apologies to Robert Plant, Freddie Mercury, Ann Wilson, and probably Brad Delp, and a few others, I gotta say that Steve Perry, he's the GOAT. Number 1 on my list of vocalists, and there's just no taking it back. When you consider just the voice, it's gotta be Perry. And Open Arms is a perfect demonstration of his otherworldly power and flawless control. The dynamics of his range, the highs and the lows, the change of volume, the louds and the softs, how he envelops a listener's heart and soul. It's all laid bare in a little over 3 minutes here, and it just reminds you why Journey truly become one of America's most beloved bands of all time. So I gotta say, Mr. Perry, I owe you a big apology. Open Arms is a masterpiece of the rock arena, and I'm sorry that it took me so many years to recognize that. Now when I listen to Escape, there is not one single track that I skip. Thanks so much for watching. Share a song or an artist that you previously didn't care for and that you now love. And tell me about that experience. And let's talk about Journey. Let's talk about the great arena rock ballads below. What are your memories of the song and of Escape? Great album and some of the other tracks on it. Let's have a great discussion below. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe. We'd love to have you. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.